Andre, thanks for agreeing to jump on live with me on short notice, man. How's it going?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I have nothing to do, so I'm watching the world falling or collapsing in real time, as usual. I'm
Do
fine.
you
Thanks for inviting me.
do you have anyone to talk about this stuff with, or are you even your wife is like, please don't talk to me about this nonsense?
No, she's talking about it with me. She's the expert. Me, I'm just the host. The presentator.
Yeah, you're just the eye candy. She's the brains,
Yes, she's the brain. No, you know what my wife always says that the man is the head, but the woman is the neck.
the foundation.
The where you go, she drives the
Oh,
head.
she okay. I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah. She turns.
Yes.
Yeah, man. I just couldn't wait until tomorrow. I'm doing a live stream with JP and Chris, but my God, like a couple of days ago, England came out. They want to do basically terrorism. They set the same subversive tactics of World War II. And then today we have a Russian general gets taken out. They are seizing unsanctioned tankers in the around Venezuela. That one of them belongs to China. Like this has got to be how World War One and World War Two started.
I was paying attention to what is happening in the last year, in the last 2 years. Might makes right in the sense that what we thought that was universal order, United Nation, is collapsing in real time. Now it is who's the most powerful. But what I see from the Trump administration, or only the United States, is there's a lot of PR in this, public relation. Behind that, do they have the power to overthrow, for example, Maduro in Venezuela, especially if Russia is supporting Venezuela? Don't forget, Venezuela is part of the BRICS. So I think they will not let this happen. And quite close to United States. This is not Ukraine. This is not the Baltic Sea. It's very, very close to United States. They must be careful with what they do. Then you mentioned something in Europe. It's everything is on fire now, and would not be surprised to see Europe or the European Union disappear in 2026 or unfold. You already see Slovakia, you see Romania, you see Hungary, Italy, are opposing the veto to grant another loan of 90 billion euros to Ukraine, and they overthrew the veto. And I think the next step will be either a referendum. They will start to ask their population to get out of the European Union. It sounds like the end of Soviet Union in 1998. We will see.
No, it's crazy with the EU. It's they. I think what they want to tax the citizens of the member nation states. But what the nation states want, as you mentioned, is to get the hell out. And you see it unfolding at the supranational level. So that's where you see it. But what concerns me is beyond the EU. Like I look at the people that are running the Commonwealth countries, obviously Canada, but let's focus on like the UK. They're going around the world and they're committing terrorism. So the whatever Ukraine does, the UK does. So the attack on the train, if you remember, in Russia, civilians
Yes,
died. The attack on the strategic bombers, that's a declaration of war. The attack on the mall a year or 2 years ago in Russia,
it was
that
in
was
Crocus. Yes,
that was
six
terrorism.
600 people. Yes, but it's always terrorism in the
Yeah,
sense
but
that
I go back to like, do you remember the Moscow theater?
yes,
Chechens
yes,
invaded
Crocus.
it. That was 20 years ago. And I'm thinking maybe the West was behind that, the entire Chechen war. So the West, they have what they call the soft power projection. They can do whatever they want. You attack Israel, you're a terrorist. Israel uses pager bombs against Hamas as counterterrorism, and it's escalating now. Now we're seeing it spill over all over the world.
It's escalating, but like I said before, do you have the means for your attack? You have to be able to sustain a certain degree of aggressivity or violence, and if you cannot do it, you saw the Secretary of War exit.
Pete
If I
Hegseth.
pronounce Pete except when he said, I was watching this short clip, how he's aggressive. Poor man. You know, he needs mental treatment because there's no such thing as diplomacy when you speak like this. I've never seen any diplomat on the Russian side talking like this. And I say it is very serious to have this level of aggressivity. And you see it with those actors, Benjamin Netanyahu. They're always extremely aggressive. They have this tendency of projecting themselves into a position of I'm not, nobody can touch me. Nobody can touch me. I'm above the law. I'm above everything. And this is where they will lose. This is where they will lose. They think they're above everything. One day, somebody will face them, and it is coming. That's why you cannot have a peace agreement in Ukraine. There's no such thing as a peace agreement. It will not happen. All the mainstream media, they always try to paint not necessarily Russia, but all like Iran. It's the same thing. You can never negotiate with them because they stand up to the bully. United States. I wrote this in 2018. United States is the arm of the UK, and now the United States is starting to stand up to the city or to the oligarchy in UK, and you will see there's always conflict between secret services, CIA, MI6, Mossad, the FSB in SBU in Ukraine, FSB in Russia. They're always, you know, they exchange a lot of information that us normal citizens we never see. So that the diplomacy or the alliance are always there, but we are not able to decipher how it works in reality. What are the real negotiation behind the wall or behind the curtain?
Give me 1 second. I forgot something. One moment.
And he leaves me alone, so I have to do the stand-up comic. I'm not very funny. Even my wife tells me that I'm not very funny unless I write. When I write, I'm funny, but not when I'm alone. Here comes Santa Claus.
There we
He's
go.
back.
Now, now,
Okay, you
now I
have.
can be serious.
Can
Um,
I sit on you? Can I sit on your laps and ask you, give you my wish list for Christmas?
$25 per song. Um, man, you know what I was thinking about today? When the Ukraine war started and Zelensky, they got him out of a suit and they put him in the tracksuit, like his military fatigues. They were meeting with the Russians, and the way that the West portrayed the Russians was they're just a bunch of clowns. They're a bunch of thugs. Zelensky is there. He's ready to defend his country. I think it started in March of 2022. April 2022, they tried to reach a peace agreement. England sent Boris Johnson, to sabotage that, and Ukrainians have been dying ever since. And ever since then, you can see the people, as dumb as people are, and I always say, like, Canadians they're just politically illiterate. That slowly they've been waking up, and they're seeing through this nonsense Western framing of the war. Like, nothing the West says really works anymore. Everyone's kind of realizing that, wait a minute, Ukraine they're not innocent in this. What the West is not innocent. We're killing all these Ukrainians. So I don't know how much longer this can go on. I mean, technically, Russia's already won.
They won since 2022. It started February 22nd, 2022, and the idea was never to take Ukraine. The idea was to defend the population of the Donbass, and the population of the Donbass are Russian. They speak Russian. Their their tradition, their values are Russian. Most of them are Christian Orthodox, and they defend something which is what they call the motherland. Most of the people, like you said, are illiterate, and they don't. But they not only that they are illiterate, they don't want to get out of this psyop. It's quite frightening when you see. I was calculating, while we are speaking, 60 Ukrainian fighter are dying every minute, or this are lost in combat every minute. You have 60 men. We'll not talk about women because there's not a lot of women in the army, but 60 men dies every minute while we are speaking. This is what is happening since 2022. I insist on this because you have a lot of casualties on the Russian side too, but it's about 10-1. This is incredible. You are expert, Andrei Martyanov, Larry Johnson, Scott Ritter. There's another one, I forgot his name. He's very, very good. They always follow the number of casualties. It's a ratio from 10-1. And no matter what you say, you have a huge people are so brainwashed that they cannot get out of it. We saw it with the COVID mandate. They cannot get out of it. It's more comfortable. It's frightening when we look at this. Then you expect at a diplomatic level that people will be able to be rational. They will be able to discuss, let's say, security. All the goals of Russia was to denazify, demilitarize, no Ukraine and NATO. They wanted to go into European Union. I think even at the time they accepted that. But the idea was to have a buffer zone, what they call a DMZ, demilitary zone, and they said if you can hit our territory within 100 kilometer, that's the size of the DMZ, the demilitary zone. It never happened because the fortification in Ukraine were extremely solid and they were built since 2014. The Minsk agreement was only a way to build a huge army at the border of the Donbass. That was what has.
Can you explain for the audience what the Minsk agreement was?
The Minsk agreement was to give autonomy to Lugansk and Donetsk as two autonomous region with their own government within Ukraine, and they could speak Russian language and they could control and manage their own economy. And this is very important. Russia did not sign the Minsk agreement. Russia was an observer. France, Germany, and Ukraine signed the Minsk agreement. And at the beginning, it was Poroshenko that was there, or I forgot, it was the other prime minister. But when Poroshenko arrived, I think it was 2017, 16, before Zelensky, they admitted after that the Minsk agreement, they would never permit Ukraine, or they would never permit the Donbass to be an autonomous region within Ukraine. And they were talking about Crimea that joined the Russian Federation in 2014. So the Minsk agreement were never fulfilled. It was dead in 2015. I would be surprised that Vladimir Putin and I would say the government of Russia didn't know about it, but they waited because they were expecting to have a good discussion with NATO. It never happened. Even in December 2021, Putin reiterated his offer to have a demilitarized zone, so to protect the Russian Federation. It did not happen. And then he was forced to intervene in Ukraine in 2022 because you had 14,000 citizens of Ukraine that were killed by their own government in 8 years, 2014, 2022. So those are facts. I'm not inventing nothing. Those are facts, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of people who will, for example, support Ukraine, they will say it is lie, it is Russian propaganda. Well, make your own decision. Just go check information, double check your information, and make sure that you don't rely on one source of information. This is maybe an advice that I could give to people, but it's very hard because you know yourself the amount of time we spend to read books, to find information, to criticize our own thinking. This takes time, and many people they don't have the time because they entertain themselves and they're not politically educated.
You know, on the one side, these oligarchs like the City of London, these people that they've had this plan. It's been a plan to dismantle Russia for a long time, and their plan has hit a brick wall with the Trump 2016 election, Brexit, and now 2024 Trump. And they are panicking, and they're just acting in the most irrational manner, like attacking the strategic bombers of Russia. The people that have the democratic power to remove them, no matter, we can't go to them and say, listen, these guys, they're not democratically elected, they're not respecting your will, they are acting on their own agenda, and we can't convince the people to do that. On the other hand, they're committing terrorist acts in Russia can't exactly go and do the same terrorist act in England. Otherwise, CNN, BBC, Fox News 24/7 will talk about how Putin is evil incarnate. I don't know how we get out of this.
Well, first of all, we have to stay rational. If there's an advice that I can give to people, not do not panic in a sense that we us normal citizens we have no power. The only power that we have is through discussion. It is through what Michael Jones refers to in one of his books, logos, debate, discussion, disagreement. That's the only thing we have. We can bring facts, we can bring data, we can bring opinion, we can quote people, references, but outside of that, we are powerless. And I think this will be a way for people to understand that we do not live in a democratic system. We are governed by a system corporation in Canada that will name or nominate people that will help them fulfill their plan. And you mentioned dismantling Russia. It's not a new era. It's in history books since the 17th century. This is not new, and you have many episodes through history where you saw the clash between the British Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Russian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. Those are great political systems, and they do not necessarily take care of their citizens. I can criticize Russia because I know a lot about Russia, and I can guarantee you the Russian economy is not what it looks like. Having an interest rate of 18 or 17%, where you have a small business and you can get a loan because the industry the economy is militarized, it is top down. The inflation is about 8 to 10%. So 10% in Russia, okay, it's very nice. The unemployment is what 2-3%, but you have a big diaspora, a massive immigration in Russia from Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. The two terrorists who blew up the theater in 2023, I think, were from Uzbekistan. They were Muslim Uzbek, and you can see that. And you can see that in Russia, it's not so beautiful. It is nice. It's a strong country, but behind that, you have the heritage of the Soviet Union. The way the bureaucracy is built in Russia, it makes life hard for normal citizens unless you have a business that will work with the military complex or you are in the military domain. For the rest, it looks nice. I would say Moscow, St. Petersburg. It looks very nice. But outside of that, you go to Samara, you go to Rostov on Don, you go to Yekaterinburg, you go to Vladivostok. It's not the same thing. Russia is a so big territory that you have some small fief, and it's very hard to impose a fair or a just policy. It's very, very complicated. So Russia has its problem too. And I think what you're mentioning, if we go to a major conflict, maybe what is happening now is that most countries are starting to close their border. They're starting to fall back on their structure because they're preparing something. You know that in Russia, you cannot use practically WhatsApp. You can use Telegram, but you cannot use Meta. You cannot use Facebook anymore. They implemented a system, I forgot the name, Mark or something like this. And this system is promoted by the government for internal communication between Russian, like you and me, and we communicate through Telegram. And you cannot have access outside of Russia. It means that this section of internet is closed. Same thing with Swift. They disconnect from Swift in 2023, I think, and now they have Mir. Mir replaced Visa and Mastercard. So they live in autarcy, but it has an impact on Russia. So my feeling when I see this in Russia, in England, in France, and more close to us in the United States, Canada, people, they're starting to close their border. More difficult to travel. It's more difficult to have a visa. And now a Russian citizen in a European country, they move back to Russia because they will be deprived from their visa, or even if they have citizenship. So something is happening. I don't know what it is, but the tension is rising.
No, I agree. And I think it's governments have gotten too big. So if you remember after 9/11, they started like leaning into abusing the monetary system for political purposes. The CIA and every intelligence, but it's the CIA, the West, they went crazy. So the West created this internet ecosystem. The internet was created out of the US military. And then they just started using it to spy on people. Eventually, as that spying gets out of control, other countries they're going to close their borders. Now you see Canada closing the internet sort of virtual borders to the US because our concept of free speech differs from theirs. And I just see this as a consequence of government growing too big. Like they're, I mean, for the love of God, that Europe is seizing the assets of Russia, like the sovereign assets. Who the hell's going to put money in any bank now?
Well, you saw Belgium opposed to that because
Well, that's because
Belgium,
they don't. They're the ones that are holding the money. They don't want to get in trouble.
and of course, because in the International Court of Justice, Russia would win. They know that because if you apply the rule of law, you have to be fair for both sides, and if else you destroy the United Nations, you destroy the World Bank, you destroy the International Monetary Fund. All those international institutions will be completely destroyed because there's no way you can apply this to 65% of the people of the planet. The Western civilization represents less than 40% of the people. Okay, 550 million in Europe, 350 million in the United States. Let's say 100 million in South America, 40 million in Canada. But you have what? 4.5 to 5 billion people, China, India, Pakistan. You cannot compete with this level of I would say knowledge. And here we think that we are above everything. We will pay the price, or maybe what will happen is, when I say we, it will be the citizen. And I look at what is happening with the riots in European Union now with the farmer. It is rising everywhere. They don't want to step back. And even the government of Macron said, okay, let's have a truce for Christmas. The farmers said, we will not have a truce with you. No way. I'm not, I don't understand how it will go. I'm not sure, but they're killing livestock. It's not complicated. We're next. So now they're increasing the pace because they know that people are waking up. When you will say to somebody, well, I'm sorry, but you cannot buy meat anymore. That's over. That's finished. People will start to react. It takes time. It takes time, but maybe we're arriving at a point where people will start to wake up. You can see it with just in Canada how people they go 2 million people goes to a food bank. They just gave what $15 billion to Ukraine again. What is this? People they go to the food bank, and there's like close to 2 million people who goes to the food bank who go to the food bank every month. You cannot sustain this.
You know, like I understand the argument that they're in panic mode, and they see that the people are waking up, so they're doubling down. That sounds great on paper, but I don't think when the Roman Republic started falling, I don't think it fell so quickly. It's been 10 years now since Trump got in 2016, 10 and a half years since Brexit. And I feel it over the course of a decade, it's ramped up astronomically. I have to believe that Rome, it took like generations for this to happen. But the level that they're doing it, and they're running out of money, so they're spending more money that they don't have. They're acting irrationally. Mertz and von der Leyen, they got sort of egg on their face because their plan to seize the Russian assets backfired. And I don't see any sign of them really backing down, even here in BC with the BC NDP.
Well, you compare with ancient Rome. Don't forget, there were no internet at the time. There were no communication like we have today. Rome was a big empire. It was Italy, part of Greece, all France, or practically all France, except maybe the north, and even the north. Brittany comes from. It was a province of Rome. So the fact that the news were traveling very slowly, it was not the same. Today it is so fast. I said this, I think, a couple of months ago. The events precedes the news, or the news precedes the events. You create the event with the news. It goes so fast. Even I'm pretty sure the level of knowledge that us normal citizens we have now, I'm pretty sure that the CIA agent in 1940 would have loved to have this type of information, because it goes so fast that even if we are censored or we're blocked, we can still find network of communication. In the ancient Rome, it was not like that. It was much more slow, and I think that maybe that's why we will see events unfold much faster. I would not want to be at the place of diplomat, actually, because as soon as they decide something, a strategy, maybe the strategy will be completely void after 5 minutes.
What do you sorry, I was just looking at the comments. What do you think is going to happen? Because like Mertz, I think it was Mertz who came out and said that the German citizens have to consider sacrificing their sons to go and fight Russia, and the UK, the most ridiculous first name for an English woman, Blaze, the head of the MI6. She says that they're going to have to start carrying out terrorism against Russia. I think she called it subversive tactics, like World War II tactics. What are they trying to do? Are they just trying to posture, or are something going to happen?
I think it's a posture. I think it's a posture. Take Kaja Kallas, for example, the vice president of the European Union who comes from Estonia. Those people are ignorant, not necessarily evil. They're so ignorant that they don't even know how to talk in front of a journalist or in a press conference. It is amazing how you see the level of incompetence. They have no clue what they're facing. It is not Russia. It is not China. It is not Iran or India. It is a shift in civilization. I will not even refer to what they call multipolar world. It is a shift in civilization, in a sense that you arrive after 1945, 80 years later. The structure of what we call the United States empire is collapsing, and everything around. European Union, they are vassal of the United States. The British crown, or the British The UK were the part that was maybe the most subversive in terms of intelligence, if you can call this intelligence. This is purely terrorism. And they admit it. So when they start to admit that they're doing something to hurt people, the only way you can react is to defend yourself. It is self-defense mode. And I think they're arriving at the point where I think that the European Union will disappear in 2026. And it is something that will unfold maybe on a let's say a time lap of maybe 1 2 years. You will have one country that will start to try to go out. They canceled the election in Romania with Calin Georgescu. They manipulate the the election in Georgia. Now the Bulgarian government just resigned. So you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere, and I think the feeling of some leaders like Giorgia Meloni in Italy, she's a right wing woman, but she's stuck in a straight jacket, and she cannot get out because she's one of the core country in UA in European Union, France, Germany, Italy. Those were the three countries that started to create the project. And it would, if one of those countries gets out, like for example France, European Union collapse completely. Nothing holds anymore.
Another thing I was thinking about, you always say how, there's no diplomacy in the West. The Trump administration, it's so chaotic. And then I look at Russia, like nominally, they're not really a democracy. Putin's been in power almost like a dictator for 20 plus years, but everything functioned. Like when they do a meeting, they put out a transcript. It's not like the US where Donald Trump goes writes all caps on Truth Social, like greatest meeting ever. I solved everything. And like, what is it about? And I guess what I'm trying to say, you're saying that it's a civilizational shift. This model of government that Russia has, it's almost like they are discrediting this quote unquote democratic system that we have in the US with the republic or with the constitutional monarchy in Canada.
You're right. Let's not forget Russia. You had what 70 years of socialism, a hard socialism, but in Soviet Union, you had people who were educated. People had a very, very good education. They were cultured. They were reading. They were good citizens until they were able to have this level of life. And we have this romantic vision of Russia. Nobody has nothing. I have a relative here who asked one day, who asked my wife, "Do you eat only potato in Russia?" I wanted to say, "Shit, what do you know about Russia?" But it is an autocratic system. Since the 16th century and Ivan the Terrible, it's an autocratic system. The Tsar at the time was the father of the country, the father of the empire, and he had a duty to fulfill, to respect citizen, and he had counterpower, the boyar. It's like the ancestor of the Duma, the parliament, and it was always an autocratic system. Since 1992, with the collapse of Soviet Union, you had an 8 year period of a criminal era. It was crime every day, looting every day. We can refer to the Chicago Boys who were there in 1992 with Jeffrey Sachs and George Soros were buying all communication companies. So for 8 years, they were destroying Russia from the inside. Sorry. When Putin arrived in power, Putin is Russian. Many leaders after the assassination of the Tsar or the Putsch in 1917, they were not Russian citizens. The leaders, they were Georgian. Stalin was a Georgian person. So you arrive with a person who's Russian. You can like Putin or you can dislike, it's not important, but he's an educated man. He's a cultured man. The man is an ex-agent of the KGB, so he knows the game and he's educated and he knows that he cannot win if the other party loses all the time. It goes both ways. I take an example, Sergei Lavrov, and I think it was 2021. It seems that he wanted to retire because he's not young anymore. And that's fantasy. But I think Putin said, "Please, Sergei, stay with me. I have nobody to replace you." There's not a lot of diplomacy in Russia too. I watch many channel and I listen to many intellectual in Russia, and they say the high diplomacy of people who are educated, cultured, they know three, four, five language. They when they travel to a country, they respect the tradition, the protocol, and they don't have that many diplomat because the school of diplomacy was destroyed too for what 15 years. They're rebuilding it, but to be able to build or to create or to educate a man or a woman to be a diplomat, it takes years. You need to learn a language, you need to learn geography, you need to learn history, economy. It takes time, and I think it was destroyed for, let's say, until 2010 in Russia because the control by the liberal in Russia is still very strong. So they have the same problem as the West. They're facing the same challenge. They will just address it in in a different way. It's very autocratic, but it's also very bureaucratic in Russia. And this is one danger for the country because they will face the same challenge.
Yeah, I don't know much about Russia. You tell me. I look at the U.S. The military is in shambles. The defense contractors, all they want to do is sell more and more expensive weaponry. They haven't really won a war that's been on equal footing. Like Russia's military machine has done like an amazing job, as you mentioned. They're killing them at 10x the Ukrainians. They've mobilized a war economy, and whereas the U.S. are like shutting down mines, they're outsourcing everything to the third world, and there's this constant fighting because the what democracy does is you got these two parties that just want to win. They don't have a shared vision for the country. So the Democrats want to win. Oh, Russia gate, Russia gate. The Republicans want to win. Oh, China, China, China. Whereas when I look at Russia, it seems like when Putin came in after 2003, they had a vision for restoring Russian sovereignty, Russian national economic output. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're not wrong, but it took time. When Putin arrived in 2000, it took him practically 10 years, first of all, to have a good team around him. Because, like I said, the oligarch or the billionaire that were there, they had a lot of power. In Lukoil, in Gazprom, all those big companies that were national assets and they were privatized. It took time to be able to rebuild the structure, but there's a very thin line between respecting the authority or having an authoritarian regime. uh, we are people who don't like Putin, or Putin the dictator. Putin is not a dictator, he's a political leader, like Mark Carney is a political leader, like Donald Trump is a political leader, like Macron is a political leader. They are at another level, and you can use authority. You can use your moral authority. But if you have people who behave badly all the time and they always defy your authority, one day you have to punish them. One day there's no other way. We call this accountability. And sometimes, and it's quite fascinating, sometimes it comes back from the bottom. Sometimes the president has to act because the anger in the society is so big because of bureaucrat. Like I said, Russia is a big territory, and you have those oblasts. They're practically controlled like fiefdom. You have a landlord, and he's practically doing everything he wants, and the citizens are paying. But when Russia mobilized, it goes quite fast to the Kremlin. They know that if Russia mobilized, they can not necessarily overthrow government. They can create a lot of problem. So this idea of having a tyrant in Russia is completely ludicrous. It's a nonsense. Is it a democracy? Do we have a democracy in Canada? I would ask, first of all, I would take care of my own garden. I will say, let's fix our system first before trying to fix the system of other people. Let's Russian decide what they want, and let Canadian decide what they want. I have Russian friend, I have Ukrainian friends. Sometimes they criticize Russia all the time. Said, well, if why you don't criticize Canada? You live here, you're a Canadian citizen, but most people from the diaspora, they are not comfortable. They're not comfortable to criticize the country that granted them citizenship. Russia is not a dictator. It is not a dictator at all, but it is an authoritarian regime that sometimes push back the boundaries of what we would not accept here. But let's not forget, people were jailed here in Canada. People had their bank account frozen. How many hundreds of thousands of people lost their job because of the COVID mandate? Let's not have double standard. Let's look at our own garden and fix our own problem, and we can after that maybe give lessons of morale to other people.
You know, I'll never, like people, you ask people when did they wake up, and they'll say like, oh, 2008. I remember the exact date. 2020. You had November 3rd was the U.S. elections. November 4th, I had to catch a flight out of the country. I went to the Middle East, stole all my money. I come back, tail between my legs, December 4th. I had a 1 month visa. And I said, thank God I am a Canadian. I'm going back to a civilized country with the rule of law. I get back. The country was like a circus. Everybody is running around thinking that like it's the bubonic plague. Nobody would believe me when I told them I caught COVID on the flight back, or the flu. And I said, it's not that bad. I mean, it's just, I was drunk the whole time. I had COVID. I bought a bottle of whiskey in Heathrow. I'm like, I'm drinking this. I was in the Middle East. So it wasn't,
You kill all the virus with
I
this.
killed the virus. Yeah, yeah. Forget ivermectin. Cheap whiskey does the job. Um, but where I was going with that is you and I, we have a podcast with Timothy Knight, and we've been doing that for over a year now. What started out as we are a capitalist society, we have free markets, to now you've been talking about the social credit system. I'm looking at China or Russia. And let's take China, for example. People say in China, they can't even own property. I'm sorry, but cowards and land ruling, we can't really own property here. So I think this is my opinion. This is my impression. We are taking standards of what Canada used to be in the 90s, if you're older, the 80s, 70s, 60s, and we're applying it to the Canada today when we're comparing it to other countries we want to discredit.
Yes, you're right. We can think about UNDRIP, for example, how international institutions have undermined the sovereignty of countries. Uh, Justin Trudeau, I think it was in 2018 or 2016, he said that Canada is a post-national country. What does that mean? Post-national, no border. Everybody can come in, and you ask yourself up to one point, okay, am I sovereign? Do I have land? Can I buy a house? Look at young generation today. They don't have any expectation anymore because it's been decades that the structure of the economy is destroying the level of life of people. The debt is a modern construct, but it's not a modern concept. It started in 1972 in Canada, but the debt is always a way to control individual. And up to a certain point, you arrive at I think it's in the Torah. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's in the Torah. Usually, after 7 years, you redeem the debts of everybody. You
The
just
Jubilee.
jubilee, and you just say, okay, we start again. Okay, and if you're a creditor and you have you have a lot of people who owe you money, but too bad for you, you took bad risk. We don't have this type of system. The debt is piling and piling and piling, and it will collapse. it will collapse. There's no way. I asked a question last Friday on the AMJ Live of Michael Jones. I said, "Do you think United States will default on their debt?" And he said, "It's inevitable. You cannot get out of it. Not with 30. Now it is $37 trillion, 37,000 billion dollar, and Canada $1.3 trillion. You can never pay back. As much as you want to bring people in, the infrastructure is not made here for, let's say, 50 or 75 million people. It takes 2 to 3 generations to build a structure or infrastructure, let's say roads, housing, school, hospital, electrical grid. That's we see it now with what is happening with the data center and the big data center. So there, I think the shift in civilization will include this type of dystopian world maybe for 10, 15 years. Then we will stabilize, but to what, I don't know. I'm not Nostradamus, and I don't see how we can get out of it uh, without having a certain faith, first of all, and being able to discuss with each other, debate. Is it easy to debate with liberal people? It is not possible now. But they will suffer like the conservative. Everybody will suffer.
Keith Wilson, he's one of the lawyers for the convoy. I think I'm getting his name right. He put out a post today. He goes, talking about what's happening in BC. He said, it's not David Eby's fault. It's Section 35 of the Canadian Constitution from 1982 and the court's interpretation of that. And I read that. I didn't say anything mean to them or rude, but I said, like, I wish you had watched the interview that Andre and Tim did with Charles Fichtner,
Charles
where he
Fichtner, yes.
he explained it in more human terms. He said you had the Royal Proclamation of 1763, where the king said, until I figure out what I want to do with these areas east of Quebec, don't go there.
Don't go there.
1764, yeah, he repealed it. He's like, okay, you know what? Now we're going to go there. Pierre Trudeau comes in and he just misinterprets that, puts it into the charter, the Constitution, and now after, was it 50 years after that, 40 years, 1982, now
Yes.
it's come back to bite us.
You're right. You're right. And I think evoking the 1982 Charter of Right shows that the policy was there since the beginning, 1967, with Pierre Trudeau's election. Multiculturalism. Uh, it is quite funny because I'm reading Logos Rising from Michael Jones, and he's referring in his book, during the Roman Empire, he refers to multiculturalism because every person who arrived in Rome at the time were able to be a Roman citizen. Everybody, mass immigration. Why? Because the more you conquer territory, the more they become Roman de facto. You arrive, I conquer, and you are Roman today. Oh, it means that I can go and work in Rome. So they go, they move, they go to work in Rome. So what is happening? Most people, they don't go in village, they go in big cities, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. They go there and they start to, or Brampton in Ontario, but they go there because they create a community, which I call a ghetto. They stay between themselves. So I think this concept of multiculturalism is an old system that was recycled by Trudeau to undermine the sovereignty of the country. And the problem with BC, from what I see now, from the perspective that I see after the interview with Charles Fichtner, is that again provinces they act individually, trying to defend. Let's say David Eby. David Eby is honest and he's defending the interest of the British Columbian citizen. You say, okay, it's okay. You will fight against Alberta, against Quebec, against Nova Scotia because you want to. But it's not what is happening. They're all above the law, and they play citizens against each other. They play them against each other, so you arrive at a point where they don't know who to believe. Who can we believe today in politics? Why people are disconnected completely? Because they don't believe in nobody. They're suspicious of everything. That's what I'm suspicious of everything. But I'm an old bear in the
You live
forest,
in the woods.
so I live in the woods. But normal citizen, it's not normal that you're suspicious of the government. You're suspicious of the civil servant, even at the municipal level.
I was gonna my mind wandered there. I was gonna pick up. Oh, Rome. So you mentioned multiculturalism in Rome. If you read the Storm Before the Storm, they talk about how they basically there was all of these people in Rome that weren't Roman citizens. They weren't foreigners, but they were Italians without Roman citizenship. And then eventually somebody's just said, "Why don't we just give them all citizenship? We can get votes and we can get in." That strikes me as the Democrat Party right now, and the Liberal Party. And Chris Enns, he's a PPC candidate in BC. You know him. We've done some
Yes.
interviews with him. He was telling me a story about his father. He goes, when his father came to Canada in the 50s or 60s, the Conservative Party, they held their nose. They're like, we don't want these immigrants. The Liberal Party's like, welcome to Canada. We love you. And he said all the way until Harper, his father always voted Liberal. Like, it's, I don't know how to describe it. When you lose loyalty to your country and you act in your own self-interest, the whole quote unquote democratic process just fails. It absolutely fails. And that's what's happened in Canada since the 60s, at least.
You're right. You're right. And with Chris, it's a nice story because I've seen a lot of immigrants who will be faithful to or loyal to the party or the government that granted them citizenship, and it is normal. I would move to France or I would move to Russia or Germany. Would I start immediately after having my citizenship to criticize the government? Most probably not, because I want to work. I want to be able to raise a family, buy a house, live a normal life. So most of them they do not want to they do not want problems. They're just ordinary citizens, and the duty is there. They vote, but they vote like you say. They vote liberal because it's laziness. People are lazy. I didn't vote for many years. You think and when I say this live because it's I have to be honest. Somebody would say, "Did you always vote?" No. And yes, I voted yes 2 times in the referendum of 1980 and 1995. And I said I made a joke. I said I voted yes because I was naive. I was 20 years old, and when I was 35, I voted yes because I was an ignorant. There will not be a third vote in the sense that now it is not possible to have a free independent state like Quebec. It doesn't mean that it cannot happen, but you need educated, mature people in power. It's not what we have now. So of course you have a lot of immigrants. They will just follow the tide. They don't want to create conflict. It's very difficult. I have a lot of friends, Ukrainian, Russian, Romanian now. I have Romanian friends, and we have some political discussion. And I see they're always very careful of what they say because they don't want to get in trouble, especially after what we saw in 2022 with the Freedom Convoy and how people were treated in Canada. They don't recognize Canada anymore. They say it's not what we thought it was. It's a big shock for them too.
They're stuck here now.
Not like you and me.
Yeah. Man, I remember I was thinking when I was a kid, we went to Germany. So 87, 88, we were living in Germany. And it was very difficult to get citizenship there. So Germans at the time, they were very proud, patriotic. They were very, very protective of their culture. So if you did something in public that you're not littering, for example, if you littered, they
Mm,
would get in your face and would tell you. That's one way to preserve your culture. When we then came to Canada in '89, um, everybody was nice. In my heart, I believe that in 1989 we still had a functioning political system with political leaders, and whether liberal or conservative, They both loved their country, Canada, and they wanted to promote the culture of Canada. So they would politely tell you, "This is how we do things in Canada. These customs." What I'm trying to say is, at some point, maybe it was mid '90s, late '90s, when the Liberal Party just went off the rails and they abandoned this and they adopted this post nationalism. They brought this like self fulfilling prophecy, that this negative feedback loop, that where when they get more people to come in, the Liberal Party, they shed more and more of the Canadian culture, and they get more people and more votes, and the next thing you know is Justin Trudeau.
Well, you destroy the identity of a country, or the invasion is very simple. You don't need to do a war to declare war to a country. You just flood it with people who don't respect the value of the country that welcomes them. Now there's a polemic in Quebec, because Quebec is, first of all, it's a Christian country. Quebec is in majority Catholic, even if today we don't worship God anymore. And but there's a symbol in Quebec in the flag. It's the cross in the center, the blue, the cross, the white cross. And there's another symbol in Montreal. It's a giant metal cross that is on the Montreal mountain in the center of Montreal. And now they want to dismantle the cross because it is offending some immigrants. And you see a lot of people in Quebec who are not advocating for Catholicism. They're not worshiping God. They don't go to church. They don't pray. They don't care. But now they're starting to say, wait a second, you go too far. And will they go back to Catholicism? I don't think so. I'm not sure at all. It's something that it comes from the heart. It doesn't come from a political perspective. But now there's a lot of people saying, wait a second, you are destroying our identity. And this cross is a symbol of the Christian heritage in Canada. If you dismantle this, and you will arrive at a point where people will start to rise and defend their culture. The Bolshevik did this in 1920. They were destroying churches, killing monks, killing priests. They destroy faith in the name of Bolshevism, or socialism, or the ideology of communism. And even Stalin in 1942, when he was losing the war, he had to reopen
Yeah.
churches and let people pray in churches, because you cannot win without faith. It doesn't work. You will not go and die for your country if your country does not exist. Merckx in Germany, or this general in France who said, we have to accept that we will lose our children to save our value. Which value? You destroyed all the value. So you see the young generation, the Generation Z and the millennial, they say, go yourself, because I will not go defend a country that has no value. Individualism has destroyed all values. And what we try to do, we want to at least preserve what we still have and maybe rebuild. I'm not sure it will be easy. It will be very hard. And a lot of people will have to admit what they did. I'm in this process personally. I try to see, what did I do good, what did I do wrong, and try to improve it. But it's start by each individual has to start. It's not that easy.
I was thinking about Iran. If the audience doesn't know, I was born in Iran in '83. I came to Canada in '89, and Iran has a whole bunch of ethnicities. So I'm not Persian, I'm not Farsi, I'm Turk. Like, I'm Turkish. So you have Turkish, you have Esfahani, you have Lor. I don't even know the name. You have Arabs, you have black people, you have Asian looking people. There's the whole bunch. When Iraq invaded Iran, there was, for something in that country, held everyone together, and they rallied behind this crazy dictator, Khomeini, and they fought back against Saddam Hussein. Canada right now, It's kind of the same. It's not as bad as Iran. We don't have 50, despite what people think, we don't have 50 ethnicities. We have multiculturalism that's messing everything up. But if America invaded, I'm not going to fight. If Russia put boots on the ground, I don't think most of these people would fight. When Trudeau said this is a post-nationalist state, I mean the guy's a fucking moron, but I think he was right in his observation. He's like, yep, mission accomplished. I've destroyed what it means to be Canadian, and now, like you said, like the people in Germany, they're like, what do you want us to fight? Fight for what? Like, what do we have? What have you left for us?
Well, we have this battle now, or it was always the battle between the left and the right, the liberal structure or the conservative mind. Now it's not the same battle anymore. It's not the same war. It's the war against a global system, which we call usually totalitarianism. This is not a word that we invent. Totalitarianism. I would advise people to read The First Circle of Solzhenitsyn. It's a novel, and in this novel, there's a monologue from Stalin. Solzhenitsyn was a very funny writer, and he's making Stalin speak. Oh, I'm the great. I'm the father, the father of the people. They will worship me when I will be dead. And then he stops and he says, "But when I will be dead, I will be up there. And what if they forget me, or what if there's a God?" And he's making Stalin thinking or about God, and no, 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 no. Maybe they will be able to invent a cure so they can make me immortal and everything. You arrive at this point where you have people who think that they are gods, and it's not uncommon. When you're a multi-billionaire, you have everything you want. Nobody ever told you no. You can bend politics. You can buy politicians. You can arrive at a point psychologically, and you will say, I'm so powerful that I'm close to God. Think about Bill Gates, or in another era, Elon Musk. Elon Musk is now his fortune is evaluated at $600 billion. In one strike of a pen, he could pay back half of the debt of Canada. One strike of a pen. That's quite impressive when you think of this. So the man uh, can say, "I can do whatever I want." So you know, mankind, human being, they have a very men. They have very big egos, and some of them they have more egos than other. Globalists, what we like to call them, they think they are above the law. So it shows that our system has to be reconstructed from the bottom. It doesn't mean that and I think Tim Knight always mentioned this, the institution or those concept foundation that we have since the Greek, they're good, but it's people who are corrupt in those systems.
I'm out here alone on my own here in the farm, so I have a lot of time to think now, and I'm reminiscing on like when I was a child, and I was in the Middle East a lot, and I'm trying to think, what has changed. What's the main thing I've noticed that changed is freedom, like responsibility, freedom. The emphasis on the individual is eroding. So whereas before you would go to the supermarket and you buy coal and you come back and you barbecue, now you have natural gas that's delivered to you. Before, like you would go to a gas station and you would interact with the gas station. If you remember, if you're old enough, you would gas up and then you would go pay. Whereas now you have to pay before you gas up, and that pays through a payment processing system that's controlled centrally. Like people, or Timothy Knight mentions how he grew up in a house without running water. His father had to go get buckets of water. Um, that reliance on the family unit's not there because the state has stepped in and provided services that before the family would provide.
Well, you mentioned Tim and running water. You go in some indigenous reserve, and they still don't have running water. So,
That's for
but
different reasons. That's for corruption reasons.
no, but and I'm old enough. I used to be a fuel man when I was 12 years old. I was a fuel man for a transport company, and I was fueling diesel for big truck. So I know what you mean. My uncle had a garage. The idea that you mentioned is trust. People don't trust anymore each other, and this is difficult because when you start to have to suspect your neighbor, your friend, your family, your colleague, you develop this anxiety, and you don't live in peace. You don't live in peace because you're always worried of what will happen tomorrow. Instead of living present time, you always expect something bad. It's funny because I know Russian people. Russian, they say if everything goes well, a Russian person will destroy something, so he will have something to do. So he will destroy. His, that's in the mentality. It's a joke, but in reality, you're right. We lost trust. First of all, we have to trust ourselves. Personally, we have to trust ourselves. Then we have to try to trust our neighbor. I admit it is quite difficult to trust my neighbor now because many of them followed the narrative during the COVID mandate, and they were ready to put us in jail because we
Yeah.
disagreed. So this is quite difficult to rebuild. Some maybe it will not be possible to rebuild because you cannot rebuild if the crime is not recognized and the criminal are not punished. If you don't want to have reconciliation, you have to start there, and we're not there yet. Even 6 years after this, what I call psyop, we're not there yet. But I think, and there's a lot of people who follow the narrative and they regret it, but their ego is so big that they will not admit it. It's difficult. I admit it is difficult. We have to be patient, I suppose.
You know, during the April election, I leaned pretty heavily into nationalism because I said, like you have to protect your culture. But now I look back at COVID, exactly what you said, and I tell people, look to your left, look to your right. Both those neighbors wanted to kill you. So, like, what are we trying to preserve as a nation? Because a nation it's an area with people that share a common culture. But if that culture is to turn on your neighbors and to snitch on them, it has to be bottom up. Like the people have to fix themselves. There has to be a reckoning. There has to be justice. And then from there, maybe next generation or two generations from now, they can rebuild the nation.
Canada before multiculturalism was a bilingual country, and bilingual was quite interesting because you had French Canadian in Manitoba, you had French Canadian in New Brunswick, French Canadian in Quebec, some in Nova Scotia, and the idea was to impose a bilingual system to a country that was about 20 million people at the time. And you would say, I can go everywhere in Canada and I can be served in French in BC and Alberta. If you don't believe in God, you have to believe in God because it never happened. Same thing in Quebec. It's same thing in Quebec. So you have to expect that if you travel to China and you don't know Mandarin, you will have a little bit of problem. Maybe you should buy a small book, huh? And you should learn a little bit some words because when you will arrive there, it's too bad they don't speak English, especially if you go in a small village. Same thing for Canada, but now Canada is a big country. With internet, we have this possibility, not necessarily to learn 25 language, but we have the possibility to communicate. Strangely, we communicate less now that we were communicating with our neighbor 20, 30, or 40 years ago because we did not have this chance to communicate with everybody. So if we wanted to talk to somebody, we had to go outside and knock on the door of your neighbor and have a coffee, and you can discuss about nothing. Now internet gave us the illusion that we are international, but we're not. We live in one place and we have to manage with people around us first. You and me, we are colleague and friends. but we never met in reality. I told my wife, I said, if we go to British Columbia, oh, yes, I would like to go and see the Rocky Mountain of our beautiful country, but it will be the background. I go to see my friend Payman Ascari or my friend Tim Knight. That's the first thing. I always said that to people. So you go to you travel to France. No, I go to see my friend Mathieu in Bordeaux in France. Of course, I expect that he will welcome me and he will travel me a tour, make me a tour of things like that. But it's the idea that we have to be able to communicate with people. How do we do this? It's so difficult, and we have this discussion often about silo. The what we call the liberal, or those the people who pretend to live in a free world. The word liberal means free. It is not. They're in the same jail as us. They just don't know it. This is quite difficult. And when you point the bar and you say, "You see the bar here," it's because you're in the cell. They don't believe you. They think that they are free. They're not. Somebody's controlling them.
You know what scares me the most is when people say like they're happy that there's bars, that the bars keep them safe, it keeps the bad people out. I'm I don't know. Did you see that premier of Australia who criticized America? They said he goes, you know, America, they got unfettered free speech. How can you have that in a multicultural society? I hear that in Canada as well, where they say, you know, when you have unlimited rights, like in the US, it's harder for the government to keep you safe. This is like an extreme form of Stockholm syndrome where the slave has been on the plantation so long that he's happy there's barbed wire around the farm.
Yes, and unlimited rights or unlimited freedom does not exist. You need to counterbalance this with duties and responsibilities. If I have, I will quote Camus. Camus said in the Insurrection Men, he said, if everything is possible, murder is possible. So you cannot have unlimited rights. You have rights and you have to counterbalance them with the duties. And that's why in the US, with the Constitution and the First Amendment and the Second Amendment to self defense, those things were put there because they did not trust the structure of the state and what we call the super state. So it's something that they have that we don't have in Canada, and it shows. It shows. You said the concept of the castle doctrine does not exist. We cannot defend ourselves. The police of Toronto even suggests us to leave the car key near the door, so we will infuriate the robber. It's we walk on the head. It's and some you'd say this to some people, and I always refer to Canadian Saturday Night Live. We should start a show because we will have a lot of material.
It is a circus.
Yes,
Andre,
it is.
let me just go to the comment. I haven't been really looking at the comments. I'm just going to read them if you want to say anything. Your
Go ahead.
friend Uncle Ray, I think they want us to take to the street and riot so that every day they squeeze and squeeze. Yeah.
Yes, he's right. He's right. Divide and conquer. It's quite simple. They want me to hate. Okay, let Justin Trudeau. Do I hate Justin Trudeau? No, I pity him. It's not the same thing because hate destroys me first. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have to be accountable of what he did. There's a big difference, and he's right. Very difficult to keep your self control.
Same guy, Uncle Ray. Payment Canada has never been a real country. It's a British springboard to crush Ben Franklin's USA. Yeah,
Agree?
I don't know if you want to do another 1 hour talking about that.
No, no, but I think generally he's right.
Clown World, I put my Santa hat on just for you.
Yes, clown word, and I will be sitting on Santa, so I will give him my wish list.
That's a horrifying thought. He's growing a Santa beard, getting into character. Yeah, this time tomorrow, it's going to be a full beard.
Is it dark, gray, or white?
No, it's almost completely white. Every one of these hairs is one something Justin Trudeau did to me. Andre, how do we know what the real casualty numbers are on each side, Ukraine, Russia?
Well, I follow Andre Martiano. He has a podcast on YouTube, and he has quite solid data from. There are two or three sources. Of course, you have the Russian Ministry of Defense, and you cannot always rely on Russian statistics. I can guarantee you, but you have to go in there, and you can see the level of casualties, because there's also another way to find it is how they will pay the pension to the widow, something like that. The other sources, it's the Ukrainian army, but this is quite difficult because if you go there, they last year they were talking about 40,000. This is not serious. This has nothing to be. You cannot. You just look at the how when they exchange corps. The last time they exchanged corp was again 600 for Ukrainian and 40 for the Russian. So what you just do the math and you say this is not possible. So the Ukrainian army, when they give data, it's only propaganda. So it's but it goes. The average or the consensus now is around 1.5 million people.
You know, that's another thing where I'm amazed that Russia, they're so open and transparent about their discussions about successes and failures, how to, do combat better. Whereas Ukraine has adopted the Western model of doing politics by Hollywood. They just like if you just say something, it becomes true.
It is Hollywood, but I can guarantee you also Russia is not always transparent because in the Donbass, when it was Wagner and Prigozhin, there was a lot of people who were complaining on the front because they did not have the proper material, military material. Why? Because the bureaucrats were stealing the money and the material. So you have corruption on both sides, and the Russian army is well structured. But when you hear some small anecdote like this, you start to doubt, the official narrative. So we have to be careful on both sides.
Our good friend Sue says Ukraine is the most obvious proxy war.
Yes, she's right. She's right. Sadly.
Andre, I was thinking about this. Has there ever been a proxy war like in Ukraine, where this is like a straight up proxy war? What else can you think of? Vietnam wasn't like this.
I'm not that sure. I'm not that sure because Vietnam, you had the sort South Korea, North Korea. It was the Soviet Union at the time, and it was the United States on the other side. Don't Afghanistan. Afghanistan. It says Afghanistan and the link with Pakistan. So I think the big empire like United States, the British Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I will forget about Germany, something different, but the Russian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, they're not fools. You don't make war on your land. It's much better to make war on other land. And it is something that the British were very good at with colonialism. They were very good to why they had the biggest navy, the most powerful navy on the planet. Is because they were able to transport war outside of Great Britain.
I had an interview with Tom Luongo and I said something and he got really uncomfortable, but I said this won't stop until one of the Rothschilds' private jets blows up midair. Unless these people
Well,
feel pain, they will not stop.
well, we make jokes all the time about how our leader could be hit accidentally by a missile or something like this. Of course, those are jokes. We do not expect nothing to our great leaders.
After Bill C9 is passed, jokes will be illegal. Sue, one of the largest sectors in Ukraine is the business of getting sons of the elite out of the country with bribes and false documents.
60,000 Ukrainian citizens per day are crossing the border actually in Poland and in Hungary. 60,000 per day. It
It's a lot.
shows that they want to fight for Ukraine, but in Europe.
What was it? Those people that round up the Ukrainians and send them as conscripts. What are they called? They have a name.
I think TSC. I forgot the acronym, but yes, they are. They are.
I heard.
Come on.
I heard like at first they would beat the people up if they resisted, but then the people started moving in pairs or threes, and one like slit the throat of one of these guys. They're
Well,
fighting
there
back.
was one. There was one that had a dog, a pit bull, and when they tried to catch him, he resisted, and the pit bull started to attack the officer who wanted to kidnap him, and he really hurt the man. The man had to jump in his van and run away. It was very funny. It is not funny, but and you have this now. You have this tactique in Ukraine, especially in Odessa, where people, men, they disguise as Jewish Orthodox. And Jewish Orthodox, they cannot be touched. They're exempt from military duties, and now they're starting to disguise, and they want it. Now it is a running gag in Odessa. So we laugh, but it is so sad to hear and see what is happening. Ukraine is it is a black hole.
One thing Senator Ron Paul said, conscription, forced military service, it is a form of slavery. Like I understand you sign up for it, but if you don't sign up for it and you get forced into it, it's slavery.
Mm.
Dude. JT, they are turning up the temperature consistently, but just slow enough that the sheep still don't know the water is boiling. I think he means the frog.
Well, first of all, GT, thanks for the comment. Yes, it is a frog, and I know because I'm a French frog, so I'm used to hot water.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what really worries me about what we were talking about earlier, Andre, where I said like they're losing the leadership, but they're escalating things and they're speeding things up. It's almost like they don't care, and eventually people will have to start either waking up or jumping out of the boiling water. What else do we got? Putin is now talking about reducing mortgage loans for each child a family has. Guess who else did that for his people, but no one addressed to talk about. Is this true? I don't know.
Yes, it is true. Viktor Orban did the same thing in Hungary. But in Russia, this is the official language. The demography in Russia is still falling. So when you want to have 3 children, they have to lower the interest rate, or they have to lower the taxes. And in Russia, you don't have an incremental tax. You have a flat tax, 13%. It was Warren Buffett many years ago who was saying in the United States, my secretary pays more tax than I do. In Russia, 13% flat tax. So if you want really a bird policy, because they have problem of mass immigration too in Russia, and the diaspora, they are promoting this immigration. So if you really want to have a bird policy, you have to be able to not necessarily lower the tax, but create the incentive to have children. In Hungary, after 3 children, you don't pay tax for the rest of your life. You want a bird policy, you have to be able to implement them. And like I said, in Russia, it's very nice on paper, but the bureaucracy is so heavy sometimes that it is quite difficult to implement.
Andre, we don't have a Canadian diaspora yet. What is a diaspora? Is it people that hate Putin? The majority of them hate him? The ones living
Well,
outside of Russia?
the concept of a diaspora is some citizen that lives outside of his country. Like, for example, you have 8.9 million people in Israel, but you have 15 million Jews that live outside. That's what we call a diaspora.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. The British diaspora exists because Britain has the worst weather on the planet, so they go everywhere else. Why do they
That
leave
that's
Russia?
that's true too. That's true too, in a sense that it's like there's a lot of immigrants who arrive here. They arrive in the Nordic country, like they arrive from North Africa and they arrive here, or from Asia, and they arrive here and they're not used to the weather. Of course, they're not used to the weather. Minus 35 in Calgary, or minus 25 in Montreal. That maybe they will all want to live in BC, but the diaspora, many people who moved from Russia, they did not move from Russia. They moved from Soviet Union. And they are here since 20, 25, 30 years. And they have this old idea of what is Russia, that Russia has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. And I have some, personally, I have some friends, they hate Russia, but they never went back since 25 years. They don't know. I know more about Russia than they do. And one of my friends, he said, "You're more Russian than me."
This question from Clown World caused an existential crisis for me. Payment, hypothetically, if Iran fought Canada, or for whom would you lay your allegiance? I'd move to Thailand or something. I'm definitely not fighting for Iran. I mean, I pick up a tampon and I join the Canadian Armed Forces. Is that a good enough answer?
That's a
Uh,
good answer.
yeah, the tampon brigade. We don't live in reality, Andre. It's always true in Canada.
Well, we don't, but we have to.
Mm, another 1,000 Ukrainians given back 25 Russians in body exchange last week. Wow.
Thank you, thank you. That's the correct number.
300,000 Russians, 1.5 million Ukrainians. I mean, remember, Russia's a bigger country as well.
Yes, the demography. Before the special military operation started in 2022, there were 54 million Ukrainian. Now it's 19. So you have close to 7 million Ukrainian who left Ukrainian to go to Russia. You have about 15 millions who went to Europe. I think the diaspora in Canada was about 250,000 Ukrainian who arrived in Canada in 2023-24. So yes, 300,000 Russian, 300,000 casualties in Russia. That's plausible number.
This I didn't know. By the way, this is Robbie, I believe. Today in UK media,
Yes, it is Robbie.
Russian soldiers have. This is what the UK media is saying. Russian soldiers have resorted to cannibalism.
Well, like I said, you have the Monty Pythons in UK, yeah. So I think they are back. They're back live.
Do you
They
remember
they hijacked the BBC
the Monty Python?
website.
Do you remember the Ghost of Kiev? Do you remember
Yes.
those the fighter jet, like 12
Yeah.
Russian jets, like all these lies? It was worse at the beginning. I think they got humiliated, but now it's saying that there's cannibalism. Come on, man, they're
It's
losing.
his and Robbie is well informed about what is happening in Russia. But you have a lot of oligarch. They have the porn industry. They have the drug cartel in Ukraine. Because go to fight a war in the front where you know that you will die. You will rely on prostitution and you will rely on drugs to keep on going. This is a reality. Yes,
No,
Zelensky arrested another Orthodox priest.
Jesus. Russia will take Odessa. Haven't they already?
No, no. It's funny because in the space of Sukkot and Dyer, I think it was last week, I made this prediction. I said Russia will take Odessa. It's not because they want, it's because they will have to. And we can say Odessa was created by the Great Catherine. So you can think about all the structure of the Russian Empire at the time, and you can start to reconstruct the structure of Europe, including the Ottoman Empire. Did you see what happened with all they renamed those countries like Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. They call them Turkmenistan now. It's a region.
Oh, the Greater Turkish Project.
Exactly. So now they're starting to say this will be my zone of influence. So I think it will be the same thing with Odessa. They will say this is my zone of influence. Will Russia take Odessa? Maybe not, but it will be a zone of influence, a very strong zone of influence.
I am amazed that Russia has shown so much restraint. Like, as I mentioned, they can't exactly attack England directly, but uh, if I was Russia right now, I'd be thinking, unless we do something drastic and make an example of Ukraine, NATO will just keep trying again with a different country in Azerbaijan maybe next time. But I mean, they have killed a whole bunch, like a massive amount of their military. I get that, but they have to make an example somehow.
Yeah,
Draw a
but
red line.
the mentality of Russian people is not conquer. When you look at the history, and I would advise people if they want to read a very beautiful book, the title is The History of Russia and Its Empire from Michel Heller. He was a Belarus writer. He was a professor at Sorbonne in Paris. It's a very, very long book, 1,300 pages, but it reads like a novel. He's very good. He's quoting many historians, and he's showing that Russian structure, the Russian mind, is never conquer, defend, protect, but never conquer. Because when they were not invading, but when they were settling a conflict, if I can use this expression, they were promoting a regional or a national government where they could keep the language. You have 167 nationalities in the Russian Federation. This is quite amazing. And think about Odessa, where there was a civil war in 1917, 1918, 1919. There was the hetman who was pro-Bolshevik, the Red Army, but you had also the White Guard. That's why it was so conflictual, because you could not. I think GP Berg mentioned it. The concept of civil war in your last episode. You don't have friends in the civil war, and that's the most dangerous part, because you live in an anxiety all the time. So
Sounds
Odessa
like COVID.
was well, Odessa was part of the civil war in 1918, 1919. It was very bloody. And so Odessa is has a history. And don't forget one thing: 2014, there was this massacre, and they burned 40 people alive in a building in Odessa. Those were the Azov and the private sector, or those extremist Nazi who set fire. Russia, they have one thing that they don't forget. That's an advice. That's what will happen. I don't know. We will see.
Yeah, I remember. I heard about that when they burned the people alive in the buildings that they tried to jump out. They would beat them to death.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like like these people, they're white ISIS. They're like ISIS Al Qaeda agents, except they're white, and they're in Europe. I don't think England's thought this through. I don't know if Germany's thought they're going to make their way to Germany, England, France.
Well, the danger is, and I had many discussion about the Russian Ukrainian identity. Why do they hate Russian so much? It's if it is only a question of territory, and they would say the Donbass would be Ukrainian. Why you would not let people who wants to live there speak Russian? The funny part is when you listen to the debate at the Rada in Ukraine, in Kiev. They all speak Ukrainian. When they start to swear, they swear in Russian. And I can guarantee you, as soon as you catch them off guard, they switch very fast to Russian, because Ukrainian is a dialect of Cyrillic. It's a common language.
It was the same thing when I was working in Azerbaijan when they got drunk and they started swearing it was Russian.
Exactly.
All right, Andre, it's been an hour and a half. It's a good conversation. Let's see if the world is still here tomorrow.
Oh, it will be there. It will be there, and we can just pray and wish Merry Christmas to everybody. Maybe if we pray for peace, we will influence with our good energy our leaders. Maybe they will listen to this type of message.
Let's hope so. Good night, Andre.
Thanks
Good
for
night, everyone.
the conversation, Payment. It was a pleasure.
No, it was fun. It was fun. Yeah, it's nice chatting with you.